Hello, Music Multiverse listeners, and welcome to Catalog Review Show. Tonight's band is probably considered one of the most awe-inspiring hard rock performers of their generation. Entering in around 1973, 74, they had an appreciation for what hard rock stood for, the audacity of it, and while the music world was changing, pushing hard against that, they found a sound and a place to take a stand, revive hard rock, and elevate it to somewhere it had not been, maybe in a very long time, or maybe at all. Well, to the top, as they say. Not only did they want to spice it up with a guitar tapping virtuoso, but they also wanted to make sure you knew where they came from. So they used a lot of old school covers, sort of like other bands that came prior to them, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, letting you know where their influences were. They loved to rock and roll too, and they had the front man to make sure that you were paying attention in all the vocal and the mayhem he could muster, swing, and machete when he felt like it. Formed in 1972 as Mammoth. That was probably a pretty good name, actually. But, hey, which they became Van Halen in 1973. From then until 76, 77, they were a California band playing everywhere, drawing thousands to shows, backyard parties, along with standards like the Whiskey A Go-Go and other staples. But they still hadn't made it to the top. Hell, they didn't even have a record deal. They were not going to make it in the music business. It didn't look like it. And then somebody comes along. Somebody I don't have much respect for as a musician, but certainly as a marketing individual, and that's Mr. Gene Simmons, believe it or not. So he gets involved in 1976, and because he's kind of, I think he sees the commerciality to the whole thing, right? I could be wrong, but so he puts together a tape only to have zero happen to them. That was actually the name of the demo tape. Maybe that was a marketing mistake.
Zero?
Yeah, he called it Zero. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
There was some very interesting self-awareness going on, I think, at the time. Although Simmons knew that marketability, I just think the record company was probably thinking, I can't, I don't know. Somebody's an idiot, right? Then an odd man in the crowd at Hollywood show. The odd man that you would never think would be the guy who would say, you know what? I'm going to make a phone call. Van Morrison hears them at a show, and he does what happened exactly in Back to the Future. You know that sound you've been wanting? That guitar guy? I think this is your guy. And he speaks to, was it Ted Templeman?
Yes, Ted Templeman.
Right? So
Yep.
Boom. And the rest is pretty much where it goes from there. I'm sure I'll let Jeff pontificate when he's up, because he's got more industry knowledge than I will ever have. But they only won one Grammy and one American Music Award. And they won that Grammy and that American Music Award for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, which didn't happen until Sammy Hagar came. That's interesting to me. They are the band that's debut is considered, excuse me, one of the greatest debuts in history. You would think it would have been nominated and won and been, this something coveted. Didn't get coveted till much later, which is another sign of everything. MTV loved them, so we'll give them that. And they were inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007. Guess what? It's Van Halen on Catalog Review Show. And of course, we're doing this because this is the month of Eddie Van Halen's passing. I'll obviously, before we get to the panel, we'll rank and finalize these. Are you subscribed to the channel? I'll wait till you subscribe to the channel. How about a comment or a like right now, if you're so inclined? All right, enough of my gimmicks. On the panel tonight, she loves the ice cream man, even when he's passing by. Damn, Deb Armitage Hicks Maloney. She had her hair teased, Van Halen blasting in the car windows, running with the devil, Susie Q.
Hello.
Jeff Young will join us later, but he'll be able to tell you exactly where he was when he heard Eruption. That didn't come off well. And the only panelist here with real life Van Halen experience, Jeff Criden, and he's probably got the pictures to prove it that we'll never see.
Right. True.
In the vault. In the vault.
So what we'll do here, you got Eddie Van Halen, Alex Van Halen, Michael Anthony, vocalist David Lee Roth started it all. Then it went to Sammy Hagar and then Gary Sharon, and then back to David Lee Roth for one final bow wow. As well as Eddie's son Wolfgang jumping in toward what, 2008 maybe, somewhere around there.
Yep.
Yeah. So you get a little taste of what's coming. We're gonna do 3 at a time. So 12 albums. I'll those albums just in case. It started with Van Halen 2 in 79. You had Women and Children First in 1980. Fair Warning in 1981, Diver Down in 1982. So they were just boom, 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 record after record after record. 1984, 1984. Geez, 1984. That's the name of that real original. You had 5150 1986, OU 812 in 1988, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge 1991, Balance in 95. Gary Sharon comes in, Van Halen 3. Don't get confused. 2 did not have another artist. I don't know why they went 3, but
Third vocalist. Third vocalist.
Third vocalist. Maybe they should have to the third power. A Different Kind of Truth finished it off in 2012. But I will say before we get anything else, a great live album right here, right now. That was fun. That was probably my favorite of live albums for a while. So anyway. We'll go bottom up. We'll go Sue. What's your number 12, 11, and 10?
Okay, so I decided to go with Van Halen 3 as my number 12. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of going back and forth. But in the end, it didn't land with me. And it's nothing against the singer. What is it? Gary Sharon? Is that it?
Yes.
Gary
Yep.
I mean, he's got a decent voice, and I don't know. It's not that it landed like a cover band or anything, but it just didn't. I didn't have that connection, and I think it was because it wasn't, it just wasn't Van Halen to me. But it was a decent album. 11, I went with A Different Kind of Truth. And honestly, I've only heard this one maybe a couple times, and it's actually, I kind of enjoy it. I think it's kind of cool that they kind of, I don't know that they went back to the roots, but it's very recognizable as Van Halen. There's some different sounds to it and harmonies, like not obviously they're older now and it's not quite as like playful and party boyish as it once was, but it's still a good album. And number 10, I went with Balance. Not super familiar with it, but I did enjoy it. So nothing so much to say about it. Just
It's okay.
my bottom 3.
All right. Damn.
Well, this was difficult for sure. I know I had said this about Willie Nelson, it's hard to not remember a time, to be able to remember a time when he wasn't around, but being 91, but the Van Halen kind of feels the same way to me. When was their first album? 78?
Yeah.
That was their first studio album.
Yeah.
So really, I was 16. So, it just was that time when you're starting to listen to your own music without any influence from mom and dad or who's driving you around in your car. So having 12 albums to try to rank was difficult too. I'm not surprised at how mine came out, and I'm an accountant and I'm math driven, so I kind of did it based on the percentage of songs, not that I like, but that I knew. Because that was hard for me when I was doing the likes. I went, I don't know, because even though I didn't know these songs, I liked these songs on some of these albums, but I liked and new songs on the other albums. So I have to agree with Sue. Number 12 is Van Halen 3 for the exact same reasons that you said. Um, it I had never heard anything off of it, to tell you the truth. It just wasn't something that I was listening to then. And I don't think I was really interested because I knew that it wasn't David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar. So I think I just didn't pay attention.
Mhm.
Was that the one? Yeah.
Yeah.
The number 11 was A Different Kind of Truth. Same thing that you were saying, Sue. I don't remember what year that was from, but that's later in their catalog as well, isn't it?
2012.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's the last. Okay. And then, and my number 10, I really don't know anything about this album, and I don't even remember what year it was from. Fair Warning, I put at 10. Um, didn't care for it at all. And
Fourth
I
album.
still didn't. It was a fourth one. Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I didn't care for it. It's kind of interesting that I wouldn't have, but I really think that they just put too much music out all in a row for me that I got saturated and I just stopped listening to them. So that's my 12, 11, 10.
All right. Jeff.
Okay, here we go.
Mhm.
Number 12 should have never came out. Should have never been made. A Different Kind of Truth. There's the truth about it. Should have never been.
Okay.
Dave's voice was shot by then.
Yeah.
There was nothing left for them to. They should. It was for me. It was a stupid idea that they put this record out. And I've said on other shows Eddie should have just made an instrumental record and
Mhm.
had his brother drumming and got other guys playing. He could have had Wolfie playing on it, but
Would've been nice.
Mhm.
not a great record. I will go along with Van Halen 3, the last album I worked by that band. Gary Sharon was like a really super nice guy,
Mhm.
but he was and technically out of the three singers, he was probably the best vocalist technically out of all of them. But he just was not a fit. He wasn't a fit, and he kind of knew it. He, you know, he came from Extreme. He had Extreme, had the same management as Rush. So then when they wound up, that management team managed Van Halen 3, and that record was a mess. And the tour was okay too, but he was really trying hard, Sharon, but it wasn't a fit. And then so that's 12, 11, 10 will be I'm gonna agree with Deb. Fair Warning was an okay record.
Yeah,
Wow.
I would. This is great. No, listening to everybody go through this. I just have to believe it's got to be the most intimidating thing to be in there, to become the singer. There are so many people after
Yeah.
after Roth that were offered and called. Daryl Hall was discussed.
Really?
Which wouldn't have been a fit.
No,
No.
but it's just all kinds of
Interesting.
people, right?
Interesting.
So then they can go back to the original guy. Perhaps it would have worked if the original guy never left. And over the last so many years, there would have been some sort of progression to where they were at that moment, which 2012 is A Different Kind of Truth is my number 12. Chinatown is the only thing that comes close to anything that's necessary. And of course, it's all based on Edward Van Halen's guitar playing.
Mhm.
It's like the centerpiece of everything at this point. And the drumming's okay too, but it's his vocal again is not anything you want or care about. The swagger is not there. This is talkative, even close to where Mick Jagger is at this point too.
Mhm.
But you're okay with that because that's kind of how the progression has been. You didn't go
Yeah.
from, the last album of Roth to all of a sudden this, and it just doesn't. There's tricks that are going on, obviously, in the studio. And maybe maybe I like that Bullet Head. That was kind of senseless fun. But I hated that record, Tattoo, right? Tattoo, was that the song?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
Yes.
that was
Yeah.
garbage. I don't even know what moron said.
Oh, that
"Hey,
was
let that be
awful.
the first tour, the first
Awful.
song." That was I don't know, stroking
Awful.
non-genius. But
I didn't-
it was doomed from the beginning, and like Jeff says, it should have never been made. I will agree with everybody else at 10 or 11, Van Halen 3. Again, Gary Sharon, he might have been the only guy left that said yes. That's something I can think of. Like everyone's like, I don't think so. No, it's okay. I don't want that kind of. It's like interviewing with King Crimson. Yeah,
good
you don't
job.
go into that band because you want to have fun. There's no fun. Everything has to be technically, and you're gonna be yeah. So that's kind of the feeling I got. It didn't work. I know like you said, he was trying. I thought some of the music. I just don't think they found the production level to get his voice in there to make it sound anywhere above it.
Well, it was produced in collaboration with Mike Post. So go figure. What the heck is Mike Post doing producing the Van Halen record?
Yeah.
God damn it, Mike.
No, Mike Post wrote TV themes.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a very odd thing. I don't, sometimes there's like this, I owe somebody, maybe. I don't know. It just,
I don't. Yeah. Who knows?
Although funny story, just to sidetrack, Rick Rubin, okay, how he starts, he's here, Rick Rubin, beard, white guy, old white guy, and he's the hip hop genius.
Yeah.
When LL Cool J met him, he went, "Oh, I thought you were black."
He started Def Jam Records.
Yeah, started Def Jam Records. It's insane. So they thought maybe Mike was gonna just, I don't know. Yeah, it didn't work out for me production.
No.
And then Balance for me. The follow-up from For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. I felt like it just somebody was already out on the way out, I think, and it felt a little hurried or whatever, but it had some of the flavor of For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, but it didn't pack it as well as I wanted it to. So there's my 12, 11, and 10. Back to Sue for 9, 8, 7.
All right. Just looking up this Mike Post. Did Mike Post produce any other ones or just that one?
Just that one.
Just that one.
Because there was a song on Balance. Yeah, there was a song on Balance actually that reminded me of the 90210 theme.
Probably. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
all right. So my number 9, I went with Fair Warning. I can't say that I was blown away by like the songs themselves or that, but I liked Eddie's guitar playing, so it made my number 9. 8, I went with Oh You Wait 1 2. It might have even moved up if I listened to it a little bit more. I'm not quite sure, but so now we're into Sammy, and I was re-listening to it, and it just hits you again. You remember, it's like, oh yeah, that was really good, in my opinion. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but number 7, I went with Women and Children First. To me, it was just like a classic 80s rock album, and I like David Lee Roth. I like the whole combination of them at that point in their career. So that was my number 7.
Deb?
My number 9 was Balance. Same things that Sue was saying. It really didn't mean anything to me. I think that album was what, 95?
Yep.
Yeah, I think I was listening to more of like the Pearl Jam and
Yeah.
things like that, and it really just at that point Van Halen had really fallen off of my radar as far as me. I wasn't watching things like MTV anymore. Not that maybe I doubt that they had videos as great as they did, when they first started, but that was my number 9. Number 8, Women and Children First. To me, just kind of a middle of the road album. Nothing really resonated with me outside of a couple of the hits. And then number 7, I don't normally like covers, but Diver Down had a lot of covers, I believe.
Mhm.
But liked was when they sprinkled in little guitars, and that kind of, it was just really fun and playful. And so Diver Down was close with my number 6, and we'll get back to that. But I just kept going back and forth with it. And now I didn't even write any notes why number 6 won. So I'm going to have to do some research. So on to Jeff.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. I'm gonna choose, so we're on what?
9.
9?
Yep.
Okay. Women and Children First is 9. Just because. And number 8, I'd have Balance,
Okay.
and which I worked that record too, and I'm trying to think. So that came out after Right Here, Right Now.
Yeah, after the live
Wow.
game, which you would have thought the success of that album would have, it was a live album.
Yeah, because that tour was from actually 93, Right Here, Right Now.
Oh, really?
Well, they toured for a long time.
Yeah,
it seemed like forever anyway.
But on that tour, I remember it well because I had to have a driver during that tour. I had fractured my wrist, and Mary was driving me to every
Every
tour
show.
stop. So and I remember the late great Ed Leffler, who was their manager during the Sammy years. He was dying of cancer, and we had traded some great stories. Leffler was the best manager they ever had, because when he was there, they were the happiest. And I remember, I think in Syracuse, he gave me a hug and said goodbye, and we knew that would be the last time we would see each other. But so yeah, Balance would be above that. And then the first album I worked with them, Diver Down. That would be what, 7 or 8?
Yep.
Yeah,
That'd be
7.
7.
That'd be 7. And I still I met, that was the first album I worked for them, and I actually wound up doing a bunch of promotions. I did because they did a wacky version of Dancing in the Street on that album. And so I did a contest where with a radio station, we sent winners to Vegas to dance in the street in Vegas to see Van Halen.
I love that.
And then I made Diver Down beach towels, which was kind of cool. And I still have my beach towel 40 years later.
I want one.
What size were those beach towels? Were they decent size, or were they?
Oh yeah,
they
were big size beach towels. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And it had the album cover was on it. Yeah.
That's cool.
So the good part is,
That's cool.
if you did your sunburn correctly, it would work perfectly with the
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Jeff Young has gotten in, so we're gonna cut back to Jeff before we get Jeff. Give me your number 12, your number 11, and your number 10, and then we'll do your 9, 8, and 7.
First, I wore my second edition Van Halen concert shirt.
Nice.
Oh, look at him.
And it's not
Woo!
authentic, but it's the same art. I had this at one time, which I obviously outgrown. So you want 12
you know what?
through
It
9?
shrunk in the wash.
So you want 12 through 9?
Yep. Well, no, 12,
well-
just do 12, 11, and 10, and then I'll stop you for a little bit just for a second, and then you can do 9, 8, and 7.
All right. So for 12, I picked Van Halen 3 with Gary Sharon from
Okay.
Extreme. 2004 album. And then honestly, like if you think about it, none of these tracks even made it on the 2004 Best of album called Best of Both Worlds, which I guess technically Best of Both Worlds you'd say is Sammy and David, so they didn't even consider it at all. But I cannot listen to this album all the way through. I can't even listen to this album like half of it. And I don't know why. Like, I don't know. I have some predisposed like prejudice against it. If I had just given up on Van Halen after the second or third, fourth breakup, whatever it was. But to me, I can't get into this. I listen to Sharon. I'm like, I'd rather just listen to Extreme. And I listen to it and it sounds kind of lame to me. Like if you're jamming puzzle pieces all together, hey, the picture's done, but it doesn't quite look right. It just doesn't feel right to me. So I have problems with it. I want to like it. I just can't find myself to like it. I don't think it's bad. Something about it is I guess I need therapy for this one. I don't know.
No, this made me like you more, Jeff, because I totally agree.
It's just not a good record.
There's that.
There's that.
11, I put A Different Kind of Truth. And I think this is similar to me because at this time, I'm so pissed off at Daily Roth for ruining what could have been so many more albums. But it just felt like to me that even the album cover is stupid. Come on, seriously. Like, I just felt like they're going through the motions with this. It's just a cash grab. And when I went to see them live, it felt like a cash grab because Roth didn't belong on stage. He was so terrible. And I'm like, well, at least I'm here to see Eddie. And Eddie's solo was like 7 minutes long. Like, I'm expecting the 20-minute solo from Live Without a Net. Come on. It's like, I just felt like a sucker going to that show. Pissed me off. That's how I really feel.
Dang.
So then for 10, I got mine out of order. I picked this one. I'm going to go with, I'm going to have to go with Balance on this one.
Okay.
The Disturbing album cover to me looks like how the band atmosphere must have been when they made it. Cause it just seemed like it was not possible for them to create an album as good as the rest with that climate environment. And it just fails compared to the rest. Maybe I shouldn't compare to the rest, but I am, and that's why it's number 9 or number 10. Sorry.
Yeah, number 10. All right. So I'll give my 9, 8, and 7. I'll come back to you so you can compose yourself.
Stop drinking the Pepsi.
I'm gonna go.
I've never seen him like this.
Like
Is he red or is that
right
just
now,
the lighting? So how did we get Prague? I when I put this particular record on, I'm going through them. God, this is better than I remember, sort of. And then all of a sudden, there's some 2 songs they're prog driven, keyboardy guitar. Fair warning, I don't know what the end of that album was. It's like they like maybe they thought there was going to be a part 2 and they were going to go all prog. I don't know. Maybe it was the Rush manager's influence. I don't know.
No, he wasn't the manager then.
No, he wasn't, right? Okay. So yeah.
He was only the manager for 3.
For 3. Okay.
VH3, the Gary Sharon record.
The Gary Sharon record. Okay.
Well, it'll remain a mystery.
Let's not get facts, get no way of a good opinion, okay?
Yeah, I'm just that I didn't know. Okay, so Diver Down was my next one at number 8. It's better than I remember in actuality, but at that time it was something I listened to less because the other ones were so much more in the wheelhouse of what everybody else
And
is doing.
that's a good point. That's exactly right. It was better to me now.
Yeah, it's unfair. Actually, with a lot of this, I would have assumed, and it'll come up here in a minute with my next, was that I was going to be more pushing Sammy at some point.
Interesting.
But, yeah. So, and then of course, after that, my number 7 is 5150. So a little poppy.
Yeah, I know.
It's almost like I break it down to this. You had the flair and swagger of Van Halen, which is where it all began. Then you had this sentimental.
Yes, it was more lovey-dovey.
More power and sentimental. Which I can't remember what album. What album had but it's probably Balance. Not enough, right?
No, I don't remember.
keyboard, the piano
Not
ballad with Sammy
Yeah, I
Hagar?
don't remember.
Is it not enough? Oh man, that's terrible. It's not my day. That's the kind of stuff that Sammy, I mean, his voice was different. I mean, that's the biggest difference in voices
Yeah.
for anybody,
Yeah.
right? Was
Yep.
going from those two, because Sharon kind of sounded Hagar-ish in a way.
Yeah.
Nah,
Okay.
no, sounded more
You
like
know,
Roth.
maybe if Sharon was younger.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't sound like either one of them. He's
It was just the
Picture.
production of it that sounded the same.
I think it
Anyway,
was-
I'm just that 5150 was that first foray into it all, and I'm like, okay, they can
Mhm.
survive. Although I would have preferred Sass Jordan, but I guess that wasn't going to happen.
no.
Back to you, Mr. Young, for your 9, 8, and 7. Now that you're not as angry.
Oh, 9, 8, 7. Well, I'm gonna go with for unlawful carnal knowledge.
Mm,
I just thought after OU 812 I was pleased to see it so guitar driven.
Mm,
The one tiny little solo called 316 actually
Mhm.
is 316 for the date of Wolfgang's birthday, Eddie's son. And that's
Hmm.
actually the beginning of the New Haven, Connecticut video Live Without a Net. That's the beginning of the solo, which is actually a lot of pieces of other works, not just all a brand new solo. Anyway, it's a great album. So I don't know. Once I get past some of these kind of blend each other, I could usually I could
I
take
know.
segments of 3, I could kind of interchange some of them until I get maybe to the top
Mhm.
4, and then they're all really good, right? It's just the way it is.
Mhm.
And then so which one I'm doing now?
8.
Number 8. 8, I got to go with Diver Down. I mean, Eddie hates this record, but his guitar saves it. I mean, I like it. I like the work, but I'm just like, okay, yeah, probably could have done a few more original songs, but the guitar work, all the extra stuff in between, his flair, it really saves it. I still like the album, and it's not the worst album cover.
It
Shoot.
makes great towel.
Beach towel.
The
There you
beach
go.
towel, yeah.
Beach towel.
Am I doing 7 as well?
Yeah,
Yep.
you gotta do 7.
Oh, you 812. Great follow up to 5150, even though it wasn't hard rock. There was some hard elements to it. It was a little more diversity, than we had heard from Van Halen in any album, really.
And
At
it's
least
what
for
we
Hagar.
started.
But yeah, it was a good album. Good album.
Okay. Sue, back to you.
So I went with Diver Down for my number 6. I liked it. As we're talking about all this, I just think it's kind of nostalgic for me, some of the songs, and so I like that one. A little something different. My number 6 was Van Halen 2.
No, number 5. That was your number 5.
Or 5, sorry.
That's
My
okay.
number 5 is Van Halen 2. And then my number 4, I went with 5150. And I actually, in my notes, I wrote down that I kind of liked it because it was a little poppy. It was just a little change from, I really like Sammy Hagar. I wasn't quite sure when all that was going down if I would, but I liked the energy that he brought. And I know he kind of did those big booming ballady type songs, but they worked for me, and they helped me to run on the treadmill. And later on, actually not in 86, but so I appreciate it. So that's my 3.
Got those in
Very nice.
record format.
Wow.
Yeah.
Vinyl. Huh?
Vinyl,
Ooh.
baby.
Yep.
Back to you, Deb.
Okay, well, I did remember why I flipped Diver Down in for unlawful carnal knowledge back and forth, and it really had nothing to do with the songs, but I put for unlawful carnal knowledge ahead of Diver Down because of the acronym. I remember when I was a kid, that was the only thing. That's how it won, the FUCK.
There you go.
That was Sammy's stance on censorship. Censorship was big at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, they're really, that's why I put that at 6. There's nothing really deep about it. But number 5, I did 5150, and it was the same things that you were saying, Sue. It was more poppy. It was more lovey-dovey type stuff, but it wasn't but it wasn't over the top like Guns N' Roses, like November Rain. Like it wasn't all dramatic, I guess. And then number 4, it was the last album they put out before I had babies, and I think I stopped listening to them pretty much after that. But Oh You 812, and I think it's just because was that 1988, I believe. I
80,
think that was my
Probably around there, yeah.
Yeah,
around there. I think that's when we got our first
88.
CD
Yeah, 80.
player, and so we were listening to music easier at home because of that, and we had like a shuffle one, a Bang and Olufsen that took 6, so we could just have everything going on. So that's why I picked number 4.
Remember the conversations you'd have with your friends, like, hey, did you get the new album from so-and-so? I
Yeah.
would get it, but I'm trying to wait and save up for a CD player because if I buy it a cassette, then I'm going to buy it again.
Exactly, but it's true.
It's true.
It's true.
Very true. Mr. Criden?
Number 6.
We're not doing Maiden, sorry.
No. Number 6 would be Van Halen 2 for me.
Okay. Interesting.
I think it was either that album. I was working for Record Theater then. It was before my Warner Brothers days, and they did a walkthrough through Record Theater. They were just kind of like hanging out, talking. So it was
Yeah, that's neat.
it was it's nice just kind of like hanging. They were like just under the radar.
Mhm.
So I can't remember if it was that album or the first album. More than likely it's probably the first album. So Van Halen 2 is number 6, Van Halen 1 is number 4.
Oh, what's number 5 then?
Number 5 is, wait a minute. 6. Oh yeah, 6 is 2, 5 is 1.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then
Yep.
4 is 5150.
Okay. Cool. So 1 and 2 kind of came together for you as like they were the same pieces. They were close.
Yeah, and I think I've argued with friends that their version of "You Really Got Me" is not even
Close
nearly
to the original.
not close to the original or "Oh Pretty Woman." So,
Yeah.
but I get what they were doing, and
Mhm.
Eddie was like a eye opener. I'm like, nobody was playing guitar like him when those first 2 records came out.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah, that
5150 when Sammy replaced Dave and brought more of a team player in. Sam. I think the Sammy, for me, the Sammy records are the best records because
He's more of a songwriter, right? I mean,
yeah. He helped them grow as he was a way better song. Like Roth wasn't a songwriter, and Sammy brought that sensibility of songwriting. Not a great songwriter, but better than what they had. And they were a weight in those first few albums until like the end of Sammy's. When the great Ed Leffler passed away, that's when the friction started between the brothers and Sammy, and when Ed was their manager, they were the happiest as far as being a band is. So 5150 holds a special spot because I was working with Sammy before he joined Van Halen when he was doing his solo stuff. So
cool.
there we go.
Okay. I'll get back in. Oh, so my number 6. Oh, you 812. Sorry, geez, now you. So I just went up the ladder, right? I went from to the next record. Again, the balladry of him and songwriting. I guess that's where the difference was really. There was more meat on that bone, right? There was no reason to have covers. There was no reason to, right. So my number 5 is Women and Children First. I mean, it's hard to kick any of these albums out of a row of any individual, whether it's Roth or Sammy. I figured I listened to this less back in the day, but after listening to it again, it moved its way up. It's
Hmm.
it's why would I say that the guitar and the entire package is still in that winning wheelhouse that they started with. They didn't lose anything there. So swagger might have been a little bit different, but they didn't lose much connection for me there. And my number 4 would be Van Halen 2. Just you would think the sophomore record would be better than the first.
Yeah.
A
But
lot of times it's not.
yeah,
Yeah.
it just seems that me that
It's always surprising. though.
remember we did the debut albums and I was like,
Mhm.
geez, the second album or the third album was, so I was, but then again, I was never like on that when they first came out, I wasn't like, it was I knew what it was. I knew what was going on, but I was not in that hard rock metal mode. So I understood, I
Mhm.
appreciated, I liked certain, but I never had the album until later. So
Mm.
take that with a grain of salt where I wind up. But Jeff Young.
My 6 was also 5150. I remember at the time being just thankful that Van Halen wasn't going to suck going forward, even though they were going to be much different. And just, that's the first big time I ever saw them was 5150. Actually have here with me part of the tour program here. Like
Oh,
it's actually
wow.
Oh,
in pieces
look.
because I actually undid the staples when I got home and I put it all over my walls. I'm not sure where the cover is anymore, but all
Oh,
the other
no.
programs I still have. But, yeah, so anywho, number 5, I'm going with Women and Children First. This has the great song Everybody Wants Some, which was featured in Better Off Dead with John Cusack. And yeah, it's got a good variety. I like it, some of the more bluesy, darker, Lost Control and Take Your Whiskey Home, and it's just a good album. My number 4, Van Halen 2, also has Spanish Fly, which is part of that long 20-minute solo on Live Without a Net. I felt like Van Halen 2, I felt a little different than you guys. I felt like it was a pretty good follow-up to Van Halen 1. I feel like, man, if you could take the best off Van Halen 2 and Van Halen 1, then you'd have like undoubtedly the best debut album. But anyway, that's my number 4.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, Sue, bring us home with your 3, 2, and your number 1.
All right. Well, I went with For Unlawful for my number 3. Again, I just thought it was a fun album. It was a lot of energy, a lot of good guitar. And Sammy. Number 2, I went Van Halen, their debut. It's a great debut album in my opinion. I have so many memories of these songs, not from that time, mid 80s, I guess. I don't even know when I think again, a lot of these songs I heard when I was in the drum corps on our like band trips. So that's when I really kind of get introduced to this kind of music. And so that's my number 2, and my number 1 is 1984, just because it had a million awesome songs on it. So that's kind of just how I measured it. I don't know, like, quality wise or all the technical stuff, but I just enjoy listening to it. So
I'm
that's
On
pretty
record.
sure it was their first number 1 record.
It was.
Yep.
Well, I kind of have the same thing going on that Sue does, but I have a couple different albums in different order, but we'll get to the same reason at the end. So my number 3 would be Van Halen 2. I think it's just because of how much I really liked Van Halen 1 and how I felt it didn't measure up, but it still made me excited to hear more about Van Halen and better than a lot of the other albums that came, in my opinion. So my number 1 is 1984 because of MTV.
Mm.
And all those videos made me listen to Van Halen 1 and Van Halen 2. So that's how I came up with that. And, I find it very interesting, in my top 3, you said something about ice cream man. Yeah, I always run to that ice cream man. And you know, I was an aerobics instructor, so maybe somebody was hot for teacher. I don't know.
Okay. I see what you're going, where you're going there.
Yeah. So this was a fun one to do. And I at first didn't think that I would be able to figure out how to navigate through them, but it was good.
Mr. Criden, you're 3, 2, and number one.
You know, I loved working with this band. They were willing to do just about anything imaginable.
Mhm.
When they did radio visits, it was always Sammy and Mike. The brothers never did, but Eddie was really cordial. Like at the meet and greets, he was a real gentleman and was talkative with the people. Was really interested in meeting people, and Alex as well. They were, and their whole, you know, their tour manager Scotty Ross was a great guy, and I'll mention Leffler till the day I die. Leffler was a ball buster too, but he was really funny. I met him when he was managing Sammy before Sammy joined the band. Leffler, I had found out that he was the American liaison in the mid '60s for Brian Epstein and Andrew Oldham for the Beatles and the Stones.
Okay.
And I remember cornering him once and saying, like, we have to sit down and so you can tell me some stories from back then. And he said, okay, but just remember, I'll have to kill you afterwards.
I love it.
He said, those stories are going to my grave. But they were awesome. One of my fondest memories is waiting for them to arrive at one of their shows, and I was and it was before their sound check, and I remember just being on the stage waiting for them, and Eddie is walking out of the stage, sees me, drops whatever he was holding, and came running up to me and gave me this giant bear hug. And,
that's so cool.
And it was at the moment, and my hands are still down, and I'm going like, okay, I guess I'll hug him back, because nothing like that had ever happened before.
That's so cool.
That was like a moment in time, and so I remember that when I remember that moment when I heard that he passed away. Yeah, they were a fun band to work with, and these 3 records are my top 3 are define those times. So number 3 would be the FUCK record. Number 2 would be 84, and number 1 would be OU812. And I picked OU812 because it has my favorite Van Halen song ever, Finish What You Started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because that song was unlike anything they'd ever done before.
Sure.
And his guitar playing was so tasty on that song. And we had a hit with it. So there we go.
Cool.
Just when you thought you got something different with Cabo Wabo, then you listen to that song.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is different.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Jeff Young.
Number 3 for me is 1984. It's like our introduction to Van Halen synthesizers for the most part, except for the end of Fair Warning, which doesn't really count. But yeah, Eddie played that and it was good. And still had the good guitar and had, like Deb was saying, had fun videos all over MTV. And yeah, so I mean, gosh, that was me in 6th grade. That's all I did was listen to that album. Fair Warning is number 2 for me. It was kind of the beginning, like that's the first time you get to have a little more heavy, a little more dark, a little more creative Van Halen, which was good. And then that was actually probably their best album cover. And then Van Halen 1 for me is number 1, just because that's what changed the game for me as far as my musical taste and just appreciation. And that's the guitarist to which I measure all others now, which is not really fair. So yeah, I probably listened to that album like a million times by now.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, so I'm gonna be the well, actually this is kind of cool because the fair warning, I would have never thought that. That's cool. And then Jeff for OU8 for Criden for OU812. I mean, I could see it because I kind of had this feeling that the Hagar side was strong for you.
Yeah.
That's cool. So mine starts off with 1984. Yes, you can. It could be number one just for Panama. It's just
Yeah.
I don't even know what the hell the song's about. I don't think anybody does. Nobody cares. It just sounds like it's on,
Yeah.
and you're on along for the ride, and everything on it is pop metal swagger, balls to the wall.
Top for
Nothing
teacher,
matters.
top Jimmy, drop
Yeah,
dead leg,
just-
got it all,
yeah.
man.
Mm-hmm.
So I just that one will always remain up there. But Van Halen 1 is my number 2. And while it's maybe one of the greatest debut metal albums of all time, hard rock albums of all time, because of Eruption and things,
Mm-hmm.
or Unlawful Carnal Knowledge is my favorite Van Halen record,
Nice.
bar none.
Really?
Because
It's
finally
very,
the
very good.
finally the synthesizer has been tossed aside, burned at the stake.
I like the synthesizer.
And the guitar god is back, and he starts it off with a chainsaw. So I mean,
Actually, a drill.
I will say, in its defense, that was the show I went to. That was the first time I ever saw them,
Okay.
and apparently, and I've said this probably on this channel too, is they sucked because he was half a step off. He was drunk off his ass. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's telling me. I'm like, I don't know. It sounded great to me. I don't. But then again, I had my ears bludgeoned by Alice in Chains prior to it, so maybe. But for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, every track is solid, well written. I don't. Again, Pound Cake is the Panama of the Roth era, right? I know what Panama was, I don't know what Pound Cake is, all right? I think I know, but I don't know. And I don't care. I just go.
Well,
So-
a lot of people will say, oh, I hate the analogy that, or the comparison where people say, oh, Daily Roth sang about sex and Sammy sang about love. And that is so not true. Sammy sang
Right.
about love and sex.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Pound Cake, when we delivered that as the first track to radio, I wound up I went to the store, I bought a bunch of pound cakes, sliced them in the middle, and put the CD single inside the pound cakes, and I delivered it with that and with a chainsaw.
I thought maybe you were going to say you were dressed as the ice cream man, and you just
Wasn't it?
No. But black and blue. What?
That's OU812.
That's OU812 too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one I dressed up too. I covered my face half in black and half in blue.
Gotta support the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deliver that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now we're back to this point. Where are they in the catalog now for you? Legendary. The entire catalog is near perfection. Reliable, inventive, sincere. It's totally influential.
Active.
Iconic. Very memorable. Very influential to listener and the industry. Trend-setting, generational. Relevant. The albums had been getting much better as they move forward, maybe even hitting a stride and truly on their way to potential greatness. Then there's club level. They have some good albums, songs, but not reliable and not as inventive. Opening act, there's something special. The album is here, a song there, sort of Coldplay-ish. Anyway, opening act, there's and that was opening act. And then Faded Memory, the band is merely a shadow of themselves, little relevance except in the past. It's a catalog you listen to less often and one of the albums and maybe leave the rest. So, Sue,
God.
where does
Could you repeat the first 50 of those?
It's too much, man.
So legendary,
PowerPoint.
iconic, relevant, club level, opening act, Faded Memory. So there's six
All right.
categories.
I'm feeling
So I so it's hard to kind of do with this band because they did have two, singers, half and half, and then the
Mhm.
other guy, good old
Yep.
Gary. But I have to say, because they showed up like throughout the years at different times, and whether you like the synthesizer or not, or a certain sound, they changed a little bit and evolved a little bit, and at the root of it, I just always got from all the little screams and the harmonies. They were fun. They just felt like a fun party band who had talent and was able to share it. And so I would say iconic, just based on all the different times they did hit. So
Deb.
Oh, I'm in between relevant and iconic. I was really leaning more towards relevant until Sue spoke up. And I agree. Um, yeah, I'm gonna if I since I can't do a 2.5 or whatever,
Yeah, we did
I'll do
this.
I you know.
Yeah, we did this the last time. We made up a word called Ironic event.
ironically,
Okay, well, I'll go with iconic because you just I'll never forget Van Halen. You can hear just like a riff and go, oh, that's Eddie, and and that says something,
Yep.
So
it transports you, I think.
yeah, exactly.
Mr. Criden.
For me, they were legendarily iconic.
Okay.
Uh,
I like that.
and some albums worked better than the others. Um, as far as like bands go, though, I would put them up there in the top three of all the bands that I got to professionally work with. And can I share one more story?
You certainly may.
Yeah.
Because you know what, as wacky as Dave was, if you got him, Dave was kind of like Ted Nugent in a way, where they really liked playing, or Ted liked playing Ted,
Mhm.
and when he was off stage, um, he was interesting to talk to, and
I got
Dave
to
was the
do that.
same way. Dave was the same way. Dave was like really well read, and he was intelligent.
He was a good interview.
Yeah, but man, was he? You wanted to slap him sometimes and say, like, just be a regular guy, because you can be. But on the 1984 tour at the Odd here, they're doing their meet and greet thing, and I'm just kind of like, letting them to talk to the people I had back there. And somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and that person asked me, "Hey Jeff, have you seen Edward?" And I said, "I think he went that way, Valerie."
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
Edward. Oh, I love
yeah.
it.
So that was like a moment in time.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. And then Sammy, when they played in Rochester one time, he said, "Do they have an ice cream place here still called Abbott's?" And I said, "Yeah, they do. Why?" And
Come on.
he said, "I had family that had a farm up here when I was a kid, and I would come from Northern California a couple summers, and I still remember that Abbott's is the best vanilla custard I ever had in my life."
Oh
I
my
said, "Really?"
gosh.
And so after their sound check, I went to an Abbott's close by, and I brought them back a pint. And every time they would come through my region, if they were, here in upstate New York, especially in
Yeah.
Rochester, I would always get them. I was always bring a pint of vanilla custard to him. And when the Abbott's that used to be here in Clarence,
Okay.
and when he used to be here, and then Sammy played at Art Park a few years ago, and that place was still open. So I went there and I bought him a pint of vanilla and brought it to him, and he like laughed. He said, "I can't believe you like remembered after all these years still." So,
Oh,
Oh
that's
my
awesome.
God, that's awesome.
Jeff Young.
So this is my son. His name's Carter, but I call him Sammy Carter because of the hair. And yeah, I think was one of your options godlike or rock god?
You may
Oh
elevate it.
no.
You're
Um,
elevating it to
I
legendary
figured
godlike.
they're in the Hall of Fame. They're probably in the Library of Congress. Let's get them in the Smithsonian. Let's get them everywhere they belong. Let's get them everywhere. You know, let's get them. Let's get a course at a major university on Van Halen. You know, music theory, School of Rock, if you will.
Yeah, but you've actually said there's a lot to having that repertoire of what not to do. Album covers. You said a few of their albums are unlistenable.
You know, rock bands are like parents. You learn what to do, what not to
unlistenable.
do at the same time.
I love how he started off just so upset. Now he's like, let's elevate them.
I love them.
This is
This-
unlistenable.
You've come a long way, my friend.
Yep. So, well, you know, they'll always be my favorite. So
Yes.
you know, another thing they were renowned for too was they would always get like a lesser opening act to open for them on
like
tour.
Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Less than that.
Yeah.
Because they wanted people out not watching the opening act. They wanted them to be out there. Maybe not so much them, but their management
Mhm.
wanted them to be out in the lobby buying merch.
Mm.
Oh, I love
Smart.
They were notorious.
So for me, I'll keep it simple. They're iconic. They're memorable. It's very influential. Obviously, there's tons of guitarists that emulated him, and they set some trends that weren't there in the beginning. Although the finger tapping was done beforehand by
Dick Dale.
Dick Dale. There you go. Thank you. But through the generations, there are still people going back and listening. And I had to. I was not 16 in 1978. But again, that just tells you, you know, that's staying power. That's tremendous. They're definitely one of those bands.
And you know what? Think of how much popular Eddie's grew in popularity after Beat It.
Yeah. All right. So what did you think of the Van Halen catalog? Give us the list and ranking, your reasons, like and comment, click and subscribe. Obviously we need it. So thank you, the panelists, for doing this tonight. We'll be back for another catalog review show in a month. We're on the web at beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, of course. Go Beyond Your Radio with us, a real music appreciation channel. Thanks for watching. And as always, happy listening.